Many people say Naruto is a passionate, hot-blooded anime, but when you revisit it as time passes, something starts to feel different. At first, you think it's about passion and fighting spirit. Then you realize it's about politics. You think it's politics, but it turns out to be history. You think it's history, but it reveals human nature. You think it's about human nature, but it becomes philosophy. You think it's philosophy, but in the end, it all leads to reincarnation. After examining everything, you may find that the entire story can be summarized in just 4 words: Bloodline Suppression. To put it more simply, another 4 words: this is fate. And to put it even more brutally, you have to accept your fate. Take Rock Lee, for example. When he first appeared during the Chunin exams, the moment he opened the 8 gates, he was full of spirit and determination. That vibrant energy, that explosive life force, it still feels vivid even now. He treated Neji Hyuga as a powerful rival who would eventually be defeated by him. He mocked Naruto as a weakling who simply didn't train hard enough. He looked down on Sasuke, believing he could never surpass the 3 Tomo Sharingan. The other ninjas were just background characters, hardly worth mentioning. Even Kimimato's desperate final struggle seemed like nothing more than a last effort before defeat. With the title of a hard-working fighter who could surpass geniuses, the master of taijutsu who trained with extreme weights, it seemed like everything was going in his favor. Aside from not knowing ninjutsu or genjutsu, just 2 small clouds in an otherwise bright sky, his future looked incredibly promising. Wherever Rock Lee appeared, there would always be passion and intense taijutsu battles. It truly felt as though destiny and opportunity were on his side, and the vast sea of possibilities lay ahead. But only a few years later, everything changed. The world turned upside down. Looking back now, Neji Hyuga's exit from the battle, Naruto being mocked as weak, Sasuke's supposed limits, the other ninjas dismissed as irrelevant, and Kimimato's desperate final attack, all of it ultimately highlighted one truth: bloodline suppression. This concept was displayed most clearly through Rock Lee himself. Whether you think this interpretation is excessive or even cynical, the fact remains that within this story, you can see deeper themes: class conflict, ideological opposition, ethnic tension, the darkness of human nature, and struggles of belief. If you revisit the anime with this kind of mindset and perspective, you'll likely discover many new and interesting details. Everyone may even find their own unique interpretations and enjoyment. Because behind Naruto, there is actually a reflection of real-world society. The early passion and inspirational tone were only an illusion. Put simply, it's the story of someone who temporarily falls into the valley of despair, only to return to the peak with the help of the resources left by previous generations. As the story progressed, the author gradually shifted the theme toward anti-war ideas under the banner of passion and heroism. This gave the entire narrative a sense of dark humor. The consolidation of privilege and power within the elite class became increasingly clear. After all, becoming Hokage was always Naruto's destined conclusion. It was only a matter of time. People often use the word cheat to describe the protagonist's unreasonable advantages, but perhaps the more accurate word is fate. For example, I can tell you the secret behind how Might Guy could open the 8 gates. First, train relentlessly and endure sleepless nights. Second, wear a tight green jumpsuit without embarrassment. Third, have the courage and determination to never fear looking foolish. Fourth, and most importantly, have a father who could also open the 8 gates. Every one of these is essential. This video is only a preview. If the response is good, I'll continue using this approach to analyze every arc of the original Naruto manga, while revisiting the story chapter by chapter. While revisiting the original manga for everyone, we will also uncover the deeper meanings hidden behind the story. During the sealing of Kaguya by Team 7, Black Zetsu, after being discovered by Naruto, realized that the situation was already beyond saving. With no way to turn things around, he could only accept defeat. In anger, he finally spoke the words that had been buried deep in his heart. What are you, really? You're nothing more than a small fragment of the ninja history that I created. At this moment, we need to pay close attention to how Naruto responds, because this moment serves as a very interesting piece of foreshadowing. Don't overlook it. When it's brought up again later, it may even make you laugh. History, the so-called history of ninjas, is made up of countless schemes carried out while they were alive, and the brilliant moments they left behind after death. Someone like you, who only talks about his mother, shouldn't act so self-righteous. For now, we'll set aside the debate between Black Zetsu and Naruto about the concept of history. Long before the history of ninjas even existed, Black Zetsu's mother, Kaguya Otsutsuki, arrived on Earth with the Otsutsuki clan to expand their colonization. According to the lore, Ishiki was the one in control, while Kaguya was in a subordinate position. In other words, she was meant to be sacrificed to nurture the fruit of the divine tree. In order to gain freedom, she overturned this hierarchy. She defeated the one above her, and consumed the fruit of the divine tree. It was a complete reversal of fate. After that, she began preparing an army in this unfamiliar world, the living weapons known as the White Zetsu. Judging from the later appearance of tens of thousands of White Zetsu during the war, that level of power alone would never have posed a real threat to the future invasion of the Otsutsuki clan. Yet, she still went through great effort to create them. This suggests that the basic White Zetsu were most likely only the earliest stage of her army. But before she had the chance to further strengthen or evolve them, she was sealed away by her own two sons. "I hate you, Hagoromo, Hamura. You both belong to me." These were the first words Kaguya spoke after being revived. Did she say this because she saw her sons again and was overwhelmed with emotion? Not really. This world is far colder than that. There is no simple family affection here. Kaguya didn't truly love her children. What she loved was chakra. To her, Hagoromo and Hamura were simply the result of reproduction, tools created to replace the role she once occupied herself. Chakra represented absolute power. Kaguya had an overwhelming desire for chakra and an almost obsessive need to control it. Losing that power would have meant being judged and punished by the higher ranks of the Otsutsuki clan. So she declared herself the ancestor of chakra, using that title to firmly control all chakra on Earth. The tears she shed were not for her sons, but for the powerful chakra she believed would soon return to her. As for her two dutiful sons, even until the end, they believed their mother had simply lost control after eating the fruit of the divine tree and transformed into the Ten Tails. They never realized that the Ten Tails itself was actually Kaguya. Her true goal was to reclaim their chakra. Later, when Hagoromo Otsutsuki granted chakra to humanity, he framed it as sealing the Ten Tails rather than sealing Kaguya herself. This alone reveals how deeply the ruling ideology of the Otsutsuki clan was rooted. Hagoromo believed he was saving humanity. He divided the Ten Tails into 9-tailed beasts and spread chakra among humans. But in Kaguya's eyes, he was nothing more than a slightly more advanced servant. To us, he might appear as a lingering spirit, drifting through history. Yet, to the ninjas who inherited chakra, he became a god. Perhaps because of this bloodline inheritance, the Hyuga clan, descendants of the Otsutsuki, also carry traces of that same legacy. They don't really talk about fairness or equal rules. Instead, they follow what they believe to be the proper order passed down from their ancestors. In the modernized Hidden Leaf Village, they openly established a system resembling slavery. This is the division between the main house and the branch house, a relationship of masters and servants. It mirrors the earlier hierarchy, the relationship between the higher-ranking Otsutsuki and Kaguya, and later between Kaguya and her two sons. The protectors must learn, must be required, to sacrifice themselves, while those being protected enjoy the benefits. If you put it politely, it's internal conflict within a family. Put more bluntly, it's the enslavement of one's own people. Freedom may require the sacrifice of one generation, but slavery becomes the burden passed down from generation to generation. If the ancestors of the branch house never resisted, then the fate of their descendants was already decided. This is the very point Neji Hyuga kept complaining about from beginning to end, being forced to sacrifice, carrying a burden that was never his choice. But even this is only the tip of the iceberg. Everything discussed in this series focuses on elements from the original Naruto manga. However, here I want to mention a particular moment from an anime original scene that truly stood out. That short scene sent chills down my spine. In a way, it perfectly satirized the core theme of the entire story. On the road toward becoming Hokage, simply having a path in front of you doesn't mean it's the easy or direct route. Naruto, when it comes to your strength as a ninja, there's nothing more I need to say. But if you want to move forward, you must first stand above others and learn how to guide them. Even with that, you still need a basic level of knowledge and upbringing. Becoming Hokage has never had any shortcuts. That much is true, but Hokage have never truly been trained either. Instead, they appear when the time and circumstances demand it, almost as if it were destined. Just like the reincarnations of Indra and Ashura, there is only one position for each in every generation. Back then, the conflict between the two sons of the Sage of Six Paths, Ashura and Indra, could never be resolved. So the problem was simply passed down to future generations, reincarnation after reincarnation. It doesn't really matter who eventually resolves the conflict. What matters is that the person must be the reincarnation of Ashura or Indra. The same logic applies in the human world. Those with background, talent, and resources are the ones who truly hold power. If someone thinks that system is unfair, they can try to change it, but the task of changing the world has never belonged to ordinary people, and we all know this already. Naruto Uzumaki, possessed an incredibly powerful background, exceptional talent, and a remarkable legacy. Compared to the advantages he was born with, others were naturally weaker. Even Sasuke Uchiha, who also possessed extraordinary lineage, struggled to match him. He was the son of the 4th Hokage. He inherited the powerful vitality of the Uzumaki clan. He possessed the potential of a near demigod from birth. Jiraiya personally trained him in ninjutsu and guided his growth, something that had long been destined. At the critical moment, his father protected him from being devoured by the Nine-Tails. When necessary, his mother helped him gain control over the Nine-Tails' power, and the guidance, protection, and support he received in every other aspect hardly even need to be mentioned. Now, looking back at that earlier statement, the illusion of the underdog. There are no shortcuts to becoming Hokage. Indeed, there are none, because that path is an exclusive VIP pass reserved for the chosen one. His destiny is essentially predetermined, complete with a dedicated guide to lead the way. If you aren't the destined one, you cannot even see the entrance. Of course, what makes me break into a cold sweat isn't just that reality, but the following realization. We are looking for opponents for the others, right? Exactly. Seeing this play out made my hair stand on end. Now, if we look back at what Naruto previously said to Black Zetsu, I think everyone will walk away with a different perspective. It was never his place to draw conclusions about shinobi history. In the end, we realize that he preaches one theory of history while living out a completely different reality. His actual level of knowledge shows he hasn't even studied the past seriously. He just hits hard, which is truly ironic. A minimum level of knowledge and refinement is still necessary. The famous victim of his own words, Neji Hyuga, once said, "A dead last can never beat a genius, no matter how hard they try. A person's destiny is determined from birth." Naruto unfortunately beat him up for it, for Hinata and for himself. Watching that scene back then was incredibly thrilling. I thought the Hyuga prodigy was wrong. Now, so many years later, I find that his words were still wrong, but for an entirely different reason. His mistake was not realizing who the real genius was, and who was actually the dead last. Only by understanding this can we see his true helplessness, the absolute inability to turn his situation around. Among his peers in the series, if they weren't preaching hollow ninja ways, they were declaring an Avenger's resolve. The rest were either overly competitive, completely slacking off, boy crazy, or gluttonous. He was the only one speaking reason, but unfortunately, no one listened because he was the only one telling the harsh truth. Orochimaru was the exact same way. During his time in the village, the higher-ups were only talking about power and profit. Only he was focused on science. Consequently, he couldn't survive there. This proves that in this world, reasoning and believing in science simply do not work. In the end, it all comes down to bloodlines, background, and privilege. Let's rewind to the Chunin exams. To that match where the slave brutally beat the slave owner. Many people felt sorry seeing Hinata get battered. However, her cousin was trying to talk her out of it from the very beginning, urging her to forfeit. This is the Chunin selection. You are from the main house. You are weak. I will still strike you. Do not fight me. There is no need to fight me. He kept urging her to quit, simply because he didn't want the young lady to lose her dignity during the tournament. Instead, it was the blonde ninja who kept yelling and screaming like a maniac. "Hinata, answer him! Look at me! I'm going to get mad! Just do it, Hinata!" Then, unsurprisingly, she was beaten terribly. At that point, once her chakra was sealed, the fight should have stopped. Neji once again told her to forfeit, but her crush stood up again, yelling her name. Amidst his continuous cheers, she lost herself. Did she really want that Chunin rank? No. At that point, she was already doing everything just to prove herself to the man she admired. Back then, I used to think it was inspiring, passionate, touching, but now, the only thought in my mind is, what a foolish girl. As expected, Hinata was quickly beaten down and carried away, severely injured. While being taken away, she looked at Naruto and said that she had tried, that she had done her best to prove herself. But in reality, what did she actually prove? Other than moving Naruto emotionally, she proved nothing. It was simply a painful and futile beating. And from that moment on, Hinata began to be completely influenced by Naruto. She firmly embraced the idea of never giving up, following that reckless ninja way, regardless of the consequences. The same thing happened later during Pain's invasion of Konoha. Naruto had countless advantages protecting him. He could act without hesitation, because someone was always there to support him. He had endless opportunities to make mistakes and still succeed. But Hinata didn't have that kind of privilege. Aside from conflicts within her own clan, what resources did she have? What gave her the right to fight the same way Naruto did when facing enemies from other villages? Once again, the same thought remains. What a foolish girl. Later, during the battle against the Ten-Tails, when Naruto collapsed in front of the God Tree without chakra, Hinata once again stepped forward. For Naruto, she was willing to sacrifice her life without hesitation. Perhaps that was the fate she had accepted. But what about Neji, who died protecting her. Was he truly willing? The ancient rule of the Hyuga clan that members of the branch house must protect the main house left Neji with no choice but to become a substitute sacrifice, just like his unfortunate father before him. Let's look at Neji's final words. Naruto, Lady Hinata was willing to die for you. That means your life isn't just your own. It seems my life has become part of that as well. If we translate the meaning more bluntly, it becomes something like this. Hinata is willing to die for you. I am willing to die for Hinata. Therefore, I end up dying for you. And yet Naruto still asked him, why did you protect me? Neji replied, because you once called me a genius. That single sentence pushed the dark irony of the entire story to its peak. Perhaps it was Neji's greatest act of self-mockery, and at the same time, a subtle sarcasm directed at Naruto. In the end, Naruto became Hokage. Neji died, impaled by the branches of the God Tree. If Hinata had not tried to protect Naruto, Neji would never have stepped in to protect her, which means Neji did not sacrifice himself to protect Naruto. He stepped forward because he had no choice but to protect the heiress of the main house. It was a fate he could not escape. The forced nature of that sacrifice, the sense of servitude behind it, far outweighed whatever small amount of personal affection or friendship might have existed. Those words may sound harsh. Some people may find them difficult to accept, but the reality remains. At the same time, Neji may not have been as important to Naruto and Hinata as people believe. When Neji was killed by the Ten Tails under Obito's control, Naruto stood there with a grim expression. You might think Naruto was devastated because he was close to Neji, but that wasn't really the case. Their interactions had actually been quite limited. They fought once during the Chunin exams. They teamed up briefly during the mission to retrieve Sasuke. They crossed paths again during the rescue of the Kazekage. Their bond wasn't especially deep. Naruto wasn't overwhelmed because Neji died. He was shaken because Neji died right in front of him, in front of the entire army. At that moment, Naruto had been standing at the height of his confidence. He had just regained recognition as the son of the fourth Hokage. He was praised as a hero of Konoha, with titles and admiration piling up around him. It was only natural that a bit of pride had begun to grow. In the end, a well-known comrade died because of him. The bold claim that he would never let a companion die was still echoing in everyone's ears. Naruto was suddenly pulled back to reality. If it had been some unknown, ordinary ninja who died, perhaps it would have been easier to accept. But when he realized he couldn't even save the companions around him, people everyone knew, and when Obito exposed this failure in front of the entire allied shinobi forces, it was like being slapped in the face. Then Neji said something filled with resentment. Because you called me a genius. Naruto froze. For a moment, he didn't even know how to respond. Back when he was just a nobody at the bottom of society, when everyone despised him, he didn't care. He was used to being hated. He could just roll up his sleeves and keep pushing forward. But now things were different. Now the people at the top admired him. Now he had a reputation to maintain. He had become someone important, someone respected. And when reality struck him hard, he started avoiding the issue instead of facing it head-on. When Sasuke seemed to die as a child, Naruto's Nine-Tails chakra exploded in rage. He wanted to kill. When he returned from training and Gaara died, the fox cloak emerged. He wanted to kill. When Pain invaded Konoha and Hinata appeared to die, Naruto lost control with 8 tails. He wanted to kill. Of course, all of those deaths turned out to be false alarms. Back then, he was just an impulsive kid from the bottom of society. When he believed a friend had died in front of him, his instinct was pure rage. But after he rose from being an outcast to becoming someone respected, his reaction changed. When someone truly died because of him, his response was hesitation, exhaustion, even a fleeting moment of wanting to give up. It's similar to how world-ending villains are often portrayed as adults or old men, while classic heroes are inexperienced teenagers. Those young protagonists still have light in their eyes, a kind of innocent foolishness. Otherwise, how could fate choose them to become the ones who defeat the final enemy? Seriously, kids shouldn't try to save the world. But Neji's death alone wasn't enough to completely break Naruto. Imagine if it had been Sasuke instead. At that moment, what Naruto needed most was simply a way to recover his composure, a step he could use to regain his footing, and Hinata's slap gave him exactly that. What she said wasn't the important part. Her words alone could never truly persuade him. What mattered was that Naruto now had an excuse to stand back up. He used Neji's death to reignite the morale of the allied shinobi forces. He invoked Neji's will to regain the momentum of battle. In a sense, he turned that sacrifice into motivation for everyone. And what was Neji's will really? Wasn't it simply the desire for fairness and freedom? This point might upset many people, but before reacting, look at what Naruto said at that moment. While Neji's body had barely grown cold, Naruto said, "My life doesn't belong to me alone. Thanks for staying by my side." He said this to Hinata. Then Naruto glanced at Neji's body beside them. His inner thoughts were simple. And Neji, thank you. In other words, Naruto clearly understood the difference. He knew Hinata truly wanted to protect him and was willing to sacrifice herself for him. But Neji had died protecting Hinata, the heiress of the Hyuga clan. So when he spoke to her, Naruto said, "Thanks to you," was the highest praise Naruto could give for Neji's heroic sacrifice. It also reveals something subtle. Naruto and Hinata's grief over Neji's death may not have been as overwhelming as it appeared. In their hearts, Neji's place might not have been as significant as people imagine. When they later visited his grave, neither of them shed a single tear. Perhaps even the anime felt that the scene was too cold. So it added a moment where Hinata appears teary-eyed. But whether they cried or not isn't the real point, because Neji may not have been as important as he seemed. What truly matters are the words he left behind. And that brings us to the central theme of this discussion: bloodline suppression. This is fate. It cannot easily be overturned. You must accept it. A person's natural talent at birth and the opportunities they encounter in life may appear to belong to them, but in truth, they may not. People often talk about defying fate and changing destiny, but even that possibility only exists if fate has already allowed it. No one is favored by destiny forever, and when someone is finally toyed with by fate, they begin to realize that the power of bloodline, the pressure carried within it, can become something impossible to overcome. This idea runs through the entire story of Naruto. Looking back now, we can reconsider something Itachi Uchiha once said. He was wrong. It's not that you gain everyone's recognition and then become Hokage. It's that once you become Hokage, you gain the right to say you've been recognized by everyone. Because even forced recognition is still recognition. As for the deeper meaning behind the survival and fate of the Uchiha clan, there is much more to discuss. Perhaps in the future, we'll slowly uncover those ideas as well. For now, this video is only a small glimpse, a brief introduction to the darker side of fate within Naruto, the idea that everything ultimately comes down to destiny. There are many perspectives and questions raised here, and everyone is welcome to discuss them. If the response is positive, I will continue analyzing the original Naruto manga from beginning to end, exploring the deeper meanings hidden within each arc of the story.